Hello viewers, welcome to QTP functional testing videos. Myself Uday. In this video, I would like to explain how exactly as a humans we are identifying any specific object, because QTP also follows the same approach in order to identify any object in application under test, right? So uh, let's see how we identify any specific object, right? So can you tell me what exactly it is? Yes, this is a bench car, right? So, why is it not a apple? Is it not a lion? Or is it not a Eiffel Tower? Or is it not an Obama? Yes, you are right. This is not an apple. This is not a lion. This is not an Eiffel Tower. This is not Obama, right? But how exactly you identify this as a bench car, right? There might be some evaluation happened in your brain in order to identify this as a bench car, right? So whenever you initially looked at this object, you might have first evaluated it as a vehicle, right? Then what you did, you might, based on its structure, based on its shape, you identified it as a car, right? And once you concluded it as a car, you might have looked out for some other properties, like the primary property that might you might have looked at is this logo, right? So by seeing this logo, you have evaluated the whole of this object as a bench car, right? There are a few other properties, like based on the style or the lights or the mirrors or whatever it is. There are a few other properties you might not consider in order to evaluate this as a bench car, but you have few other properties with this car, right? So in the same way, for example, uh, in this, like what I'm trying to cover here is like QTP also does the same kind of approach in order to identify any specific object. First, when QTP looks, it first identifies the what kind of object is, whether it is a web button or web edit, win edit, whether it is a list box or it is a combo box, like that. First, it identifies the class, like how we initially identified the object as a vehicle, right? So once you identify this as a vehicle, you next look out for some other properties like its structure, and look out for the logo and all those things, right? In the same way, QTP also looks out for some of the properties, right? For each object, like each of these classes have numerous number of properties, but we don't look for all those properties. We will first prioritize some of the properties in order to identify that object, right? So those properties are like one or two or whatever the number, you give more priority to those properties, then those properties are called mandatory properties, right? See, in our example, by just looking at this logo, right, you identified this as a bench car. So you can, in the same way, QTP also will have those kind of mandatory properties, that for example for the class, right, we can configure what needs to be the mandatory properties. We can configure those properties for that object class. Okay, so once you once you configured the mandatory properties, there are few other properties called assistive properties. Okay, like what it will do is, first, in order to identify object, it will look out for the mandatory properties, whether it can be identified with mandatory properties or not. Okay, so later what we will do is, we can configure some of the assistive properties to make sure that the object can be identifiable with assistive properties. Like with our example, we can put a like a each bench might have different classes like A class, B class, A class, or else you can either specify a model number. By just telling me the model number, I cannot tell whether it is a bench car or Ferrari car or Audi, because I'm not that much like uh, that is not easy way for me to identify the car. But there are, by seeing the logo kind of thing, then I can easily tell you the what type of the car it is, right? So what are the main properties? Like by seeing those kind of properties, we can easily identify, then we can configure those as a mandatory properties. Then any other supported properties, we can configure that as an assistive properties, so that we can identify the object. QTP exactly follows the same approach as we do in order to identify any object in our application, right? So this is just an example, this is just heads up to how exactly as a humans or QTP identifies the object. QTP exactly follow the same kind of algorithm or approach to identify the objects, right? In my next video, I will demonstrate you like how exactly QTP follows, like demonstrating how we can configure the mandatory and assistive properties and few other concepts like ordinal identifiers or smart identification. Like we will see those concepts in my next video. Okay, this is a just heads up uh, video tutorial to identify object identification. Okay, thanks for watching this video. Please leave your comments. Just stay tuned to my next video, where I will be demonstrating how exactly QTP identifies the object. Thanks for watching.